This can be a lot of people's ticket out of a really bleak existence.
And people that aren't big fans of fighting don't realize how much this impacts people's lives.
All this year on Merit TV, we've been focusing on the critical issues that you have told us are important to you. And we've been trying to bring them to you with as much clarity as possible. I've heard directly from you about what matters the most and why there is so much at stake when it comes to the results of our presidential election. I'm in Las Vegas on the eve of election results to sit down with one of Donald Trump's closest friends, Dana White, who is the CEO and president of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, also known as the UFC. The UFC has revolutionized the fight business and today stands as a premium global sports brand and media content company. Tonight, in an in-depth interview, Dana will not only discuss his inspiring self-made rise to success, but also his concerns about the state of this great country and why he believes former President Trump should be reelected. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
I know, I've been wanting to sit down and talk with you, and you and I have actually been spending a fair amount of time together.
We have, yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, it has been good. So we're at the world headquarters of UFC right now. And this is just an overnight success, right?
Yeah.
Just as soon as you started, everything clicked.
Yeah, no, it out the gates, we bought it for $2 million back in 2001. And then we went somewhere like 40 million in the hole before we turned it around.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's a pretty good hole to dig.
Yeah, it really is. But our goal was to get this thing on free TV. At the time when we bought it, it wasn't allowed on pay-per-view. You as a grown adult didn't have the option to buy it on pay-per-view. Porn was on pay-per-view. The UFC was not allowed. So that just goes to show you where it was at that time.
Yeah. So what was the big pushback? Too violent? What was it?
So at the time, before we bought it, the old owner, a guy named Bob Meyerowitz, he had all this marketing, the most brutal, violent sport in the world. 2 men enter the cage, 1 man leaves. And it was great for marketing in the early days. They did big pay-per-view numbers, but then Senator John McCain went after him. And, instead of running toward regulation, they ran away from regulation. They would go to states where there were no athletic commissions, and you can only mess with the government for so long before they get you.
Yeah. So how did you wind up doing this? Because this wasn't something that you sit in your sandbox in the backyard and say, I want to head up Ultimate Fighting Championship. I want to do mixed martial arts. It's not, a kid doesn't think about that.
Right. I was actually a big boxing guy. I was a huge fan of boxing, loved boxing. And one day when I was 19 years old, I was working at the Boston Harbor Hotel. And I said, why am I here? I don't want to do this anymore. So I literally walked out the front door and my buddy's like, where are you going? I said, I'm quitting. He's like, you crazy? Why are you quitting? I said, I want to get in the fight business. And of course, everybody thought that was the stupidest idea in the world. Probably was. And that was it. I started working toward.
You weren't a fighter.
No. But I wanted to learn everything about fighting. And, but I did box. I did box. And started to learn everything. I sought out this guy in South Boston. His name was Peter Welsh. He's a fighting legend back there. And he took me in and taught me everything he knew. So
why did he do that?
I don't know. This was a guy that you didn't go looking for in South Boston. And I went looking for him and I found him. And I said, I know this sounds crazy, but I want to work for you. I want to work under you. I want to learn everything about the fight game. You don't have to pay me. And he did it. I don't know why, but he did.
So a 19-year-old kid,
Yep.
He said, I'm going to work for you, but I want to work for free.
Yep.
And this wasn't a guy he wasn't exactly a mentor type.
He was a street fighting and boxing legend in South Boston.
Yeah.
Crazy stories about this guy. Like I said, it wasn't a guy you went looking for. And just oddly enough, I found him and he took me in and the rest is history.
Yeah, you said he was my college. He was my sensei. You actually tried college a little bit, right?
Yeah, for about a semester.
Yeah.
I didn't like school in general. I barely got through high school. So I said, let me give college a shot. I didn't last. It didn't work. So
What didn't you like about it?
I didn't like anything about it. School, I felt like school never taught me anything, and I never had the focus to get through school. Some people are school people and some people aren't. I definitely was not a school person. But I found Peter, was with him for a few years. Then I moved back to Vegas, and I actually went to a wedding. This kid, Adam Corrigan, used to drive me to school every day, and he was getting married. And I actually had a blanket policy back then. I didn't go to anybody's wedding. But this guy was so good to me growing up, there was no way I couldn't go to his wedding. I went to his wedding, and I bumped into the Fertitta brothers. And Lorenzo said, I heard you're training people. I'd love to work out with you. We got together that Monday after the wedding, and we've been together ever since.
So I've been doing some timelining here. So you start at 19, and you're working with Welch. You learn this game, so you wind up buying UFC for $2 million. And then 3 years later, you're 40 million in the hole. So you turn $2 million into minus 40 million
Right.
In 2 years.
Right.
And actually 3 years.
It was more around 2005.
Yeah. And at 2005, you started the Ultimate Fighter TV competition.
Right.
That changed everything.
So reality television was big at the time. We knew we had to get on television. It wasn't allowed on pay-per-view. How do you get it on free TV? And reality just started to get big.
And that blew up. But at first, you had to pay to get this on TV.
Right. So we started shopping this thing around. Nobody liked it. Then, at the time, the Nashville network just switched over to Spike TV, which they were calling the men's network. I mean, if we don't fit there, where do we fit? So we went and met with those guys. They hated it and didn't want to pay for it. And we said, well, what if we put up the money? Cost $10 million for the show. They liked that idea better. And what was amazing was we put up the 10 million, and it was the last 10 million that the Fertittas were going to invest in the sport. So the thing blows up, and because we paid for it, we owned 100% of everything. We owned all the rights, and so it was actually a blessing that they didn't like it.
So how many seasons for Ultimate Fighter competition?
It's still going.
I know.
Yeah, it's still going. I don't even know what we're on. We're on 30-something.
32.
32? Well, thank you.
32.
There you go.
I've been doing a timeline. 32 seasons. And this thing started out, you paying $10 million, and it's thrown off. UFC realized a revenue of over $200 million by the second year. I mean, this thing just blew up.
It did. It really did. We had this philosophy. Could we be this wrong? Could we be this out of touch with reality? We felt like if this thing was introduced to the masses, they would love it as much as we did. And we were right, thank God.
Yeah, I would say you're right. Then it was 10 years later, you started out with apparel in year 14. You started apparel. You got into that. Then in 15, you built this amazing campus here. So what's this thing worth now?
Yeah, I mean, this thing is anywhere from 12 to 15 billion now.
12 to 15 billion dollars.
Yeah.
So you're standing in the lobby, hauling bags, and you say, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm out of here. I want to get in the fight game. And so now we're sitting here in this campus. It's worth 12 to 15 billion dollars. Do you ever stop and think, are you kidding me? Supply chain issues are on the rise, whether caused by natural disasters like Hurricanes Helene and Milton, global conflict, or worldwide inflation. The impacts are being felt across the board. When there's an urgent need for essential items like medications, these delays can become catastrophic. In the face of disruptions and cutoffs, how will you care for yourself and your loved ones? The Jace case provides peace of mind for families during times of shortages, delays, and disaster. It's an emergency medication kit containing 5 life-saving antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. By completing a simple online evaluation, you'll be prepared for the unexpected. Don't wait until it's too late. The time to prepare is now. Right now, you can receive a discount on your Jace case. Just go to jace.com and enter promo PHIL at checkout. That's promo code PHIL at Jace, JASE.com, ensuring you have the right medications when you need them most. I mean, really, do you ever just think, are you kidding me?
Sometimes, yes, but I'm always thinking about what's next, how much bigger can it be? Technology keeps getting better, and technology has been our friend. The world is getting smaller. We now have fighters from you name a place, we can get a fighter from there. And, when you and I grew up, there was Channel 3, Channel 5, Channel 8, and Channel 13.
And you got them,
right? And then by the time we got up to high school, it was like 33 channels on cable. And then cable blew up and was massive, and satellite. Well, now streaming is big. So when I look at the ceiling for this business, it's 8 billion. There's 8 billion people in the world, right?
Yeah.
And if I put on the right fight at the right time in the right place, now everybody can watch it at the same time on the same channel. So our ceiling is massive.
Yeah, massive. What's the biggest fight you've ever had?
Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather, which ironically is a boxing event, but it's the biggest combat sports fight ever. It beat everything. That's number one, and Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao was number two.
Yeah, but the biggest was a mixed martial arts and boxing, so it was a combo.
Yeah.
What did that gross?
It did 4.4 or 4.5 million buys.
Wow.
Yeah, at $100 a buy.
Yeah, so that worked out okay.
It did.
Yeah. You recently took over the Sphere and did a 3-night event there?
One night. Yeah, one night.
And it was astounding.
Thank you.
I mean, the graphics, and it was astounding. And that's something that will be in your library forever.
Yeah.
Were you happy with it?
Yeah, I was very happy with it. It was obviously a very special night. We were the first ones to ever pull off a live sporting event at the Sphere. And it was incredible. Broke all of our records, but I'll never do it again.
You figure once and you're done?
One and done.
Yeah. So what's your work life balance? How are you doing that?
I work a lot, but I also spend a lot of time with my family, go on trips, and my kids are older now. So, my daughter's a senior in high school, and I have a 22 and 23-year-old boys. So my oldest son lives in Boston now. He's out there doing his thing. My younger son here just created his own anime and did a deal with Dark Horse Comics. He has an anime series coming out. So, I help them with things whenever I can, and I got a really good balance. Got good kids and good family.
You started taking care of yourself recently differently than you have before, because we've talked about that. And you got me now involved in this, and I'm getting ready to make a major shift. But you were not healthy.
Right. I was in bad shape. I was on blood pressure medicine, cholesterol medicine, thyroid medicine, and I never felt good. I was always tired. My legs were all messed up. My triglycerides were off the charts, and I was taking pills. And I met this guy named Gary Brecka, and he did my blood work, and I never believed in holistic stuff. I always thought it was bullshit. COVID changed everything for me. I used to believe in modern medicine. Now I'll never talk to a doctor ever again about my general health. If I break my arm, I'll go see a doctor. But my general health, never talk to a doctor again. They want to put you on pills. They have an answer for everything that's wrong with you, and it's a pill. And they never fix anything. Gary Brecka is a human biologist. When I didn't want to meet with him. A friend of mine, Carrie Kasem. Remember Casey Kasem?
Yeah.
His daughter and I have been friends for a very long time.
Yeah.
And she said, I love you. You've been a good friend to me, and I'm going to give you the greatest gift that anybody could ever give you. I'm going to introduce you to this guy, Gary Brecka. He's a genius. He's this, that, and everything else. I avoided him for a while. Then finally, when we met, he did my blood work. He had none of my medical records or any of that. He told me everything that was wrong with me. And my whole leg thing, I never talked about it with anybody. I didn't tell anybody about it. Not even my wife. Nobody knew. So when he told me my legs were messed up, I was like, he goes, give me 12 weeks and I'll change your whole life. I was like, I can do anything for 12 weeks. It didn't take 12 weeks. 6 or 7 weeks in, I felt unbelievable. And right now here, I mean, you know, we were just talking about it, how much running around I'm doing. I'm 55 years old. I'm running all over the place, flying here, flying there. I've never felt better in my life.
Yeah, and this is, you couldn't even sleep. You said you were waking up throwing up at night.
Right, my sleep apnea was so bad, I threw up every night. Every night when I went to sleep, I would wake up gasping for air, choking, and I threw up every night. I was throwing up so much that I was starting to lose my voice regularly. And yeah, Gary Brecka does this thing where he does your blood work, and he estimates how long you have to live. He gave me 10.8 years or 10.4 years or whatever it was. And me and my wife truly believed that he was wrong, and I didn't have that long. Thought I had less.
Thought he was optimistic?
Yeah, he was being overly optimistic.
Yeah,
he's amazing. He's incredible. And every time I talk about him, people pop up on the internet, and there's all these doctors and weirdos on the internet that start talking about either I'm being paid or this isn't real. And I always tell people, I'm sharing this with everybody so that other people could do it, and people out there can have hope that if you're on all these pills from these doctors, you don't need to be. And he's done it with my 81-year-old mother-in-law. Tons of that guy, Adam Corrigan, that I told you used to pick me up. He had to have a stent put in his heart at 53, changed his life. I mean, it's just, Dr. Phil, when you start doing this with Gary Brecka, you're going to sound like me in 6 months.
Yeah, I see him for the first time next week. Now, let me ask you something. You are very self-directed. Would you agree?
Yeah.
And we have some things in common. My dad was a bad alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
Your dad was a bad alcoholic.
Right.
And I know I got to be, as a lot of children of alcoholics are, you got to be very self-reliant at a very young age.
Yeah.
Do you regret growing up that way?
No, I wouldn't change one thing. Loved every minute of it. I wouldn't be, you know, I had issues with my mom. I moved out of my house when I was 15. My dad was an alcoholic. I grew up with a single mom. Me and my sister, she was never there. She worked all the time. And I wouldn't change one thing. I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for the way I grew up.
Yeah, I feel the same way in many respects. I wouldn't wish that on my children. I wouldn't want them to grow up the way I did, because I went through a lot of things that
I made sure mine didn't.
Yeah, exactly. You have a choice. You either do what you were modeled, or you go the other direction.
Right.
I went the other direction, but you know, I never brought kids home, because you never know what you're going to find when you do. I mean, or the window's going to be kicked out, you know, the light's going to be turned, utilities on or off or whatever. But you do become self-reliant, and that seems to me that's defined you. You said, I'm not going to depend on this or that. I'm just going to figure my own way and make my own way. And you're still doing that today.
Yeah, people always talk to me. When I hear these people talk about, I didn't have any role models growing up. That's crazy. There are tons of role models around you when you grow up. Just depends on how you look at it.
Yeah.
I had my dad and his side of the family were all role models for me about what I didn't want to do and what I didn't want to be. You can look at all these people around you, and you can see the good and the bad and the whatever it is. You learn from everybody. You don't have to have some superhero, you know, figure in your life. A lot of the bad stuff is way more influential than the good stuff.
Yeah. What drives you now? Because obviously you're hugely successful financially. If you never worked another day in your life, it wouldn't change your standard of living. But you're one of the most driven people I've ever met.
Thank you.
What is it that drives you?
Well, it's like when you said earlier in the interview, do you ever look around? And I never look around. I'm always looking forward. And I know what the potential for this business is and how big and how great it can be. And that's what I focus on every day. I love to win. I love to come in. I love the people that I do it with. I have an incredible team around me here that I truly care about. And we have a blast in here every day, just kicking ass. And I don't know. I couldn't retire. I hate sitting around. I don't love time off. I don't love it. I'll go out and spend my time with my family and do my things. By the time we're at the end of that trip, I'm ready to get right back to work. There used to be this, when you and I were growing up, you had all these people that worked their whole life, right? And everybody was looking forward to retirement. And it always seemed to be the same, you know, I don't know what you call the same, you know, everybody had the same dream. I'm gonna retire. I'm gonna sit on the beach and I'm gonna drink, you know, pina coladas. How many times can you sit on the beach and how many pina coladas can you drink before you're like, what the hell am I doing with the rest of my life? You know, that's great for 3 or 4 days. Then you'll go crazy. I love what I do and I'm gonna do it until I physically can't do it anymore.
Yeah. Well, I've got 3 questions I want to ask you that I bet you've never been asked before. And because you're so successful, I think people are going to want to hear the answer to these.
Okay.
I believe, and there's a lot of research to support this actually. I wrote this in a book many years ago, and it's proven to be true. I think everybody in their life goes through 10 defining moments, has 7 critical choices, and meets 5 pivotal people in their life. I'm not going to ask you to name 10, 7, and 5, but a defining moment is something that you go through that you're one way before and you're changed in a lasting way after that moment happens. What is a major defining moment in your life? What is something that happened in your life that you were dramatically changed after it occurred in a lasting way?
So we just talked about single mom, wasn't home a lot. Dad was never there. When he did show up, you didn't want him there. And there was this guy that lived behind us at our house, right? And I was young, me and my sister, and he used to terrorize us. And I remember one day he pulled his car up. Our dog was barking out back or whatever, and he was flipping out. Pulled his car up right into our driveway and was laying on the horn and was beating on our front door. And it woke me up, and I was like, I thought it was my dad drunk showing up at the house. We had these diamond windows in our door, and I went out there and his face was like right in the window screaming. And I remember I was scared, and I was like, oh my God, there's no man in the house. You know what I mean? Is this guy going to kick the door in or whatever? And I just kept thinking, you know, if my father was here, he would literally kill this guy, right? So that happened, and we had a few of these things that went on with this guy that lived behind us. Guy terrorizing a single mom and their 2 little kids. Then one day, I'm 15 years old, and I'm sitting at the kitchen table, and I hear this screaming. And I'm listening. He was screaming at my mother in the backyard, and something just snapped. And that was the day. I ran out back, and I jumped up on the wall, and I said, if you ever stick your fat face over this wall again, I'm going to beat the out of you. The guy literally turned around, went back in his house, and we never heard from him again. That's what a coward this guy was. And that day when that happened, everything changed. I didn't live at home much longer after that, and it was the day that, I don't know if you want to call it the day you become a man or the day you whatever, but my whole life changed after that day.
Defining moment.
100%.
You were different after that in a
100%.
lasting way. What clicked in you? What changed in you? What did you realize in that moment?
I don't know. To this day, I don't know still. But, you know, this guy that had terrorized us since we were little and came over, that was the day that something just snapped, and I said, I'm literally going to beat the out of this guy today.
I wrote this in another book. I've written 10, so I got a lot of stuff in books, but I'll label that for you. We teach people how to treat us. You taught him how to treat you at that moment. This doesn't work anymore. You need to go back in your house and shut up.
Right.
I've seen you do it many times. You teach people how to treat you. And I've seen you with a lot of people, and you always treat them generously and with dignity and respect.
Thank you.
You do. I don't care if it's a bellman, which you've been, or somebody that's moving a car, or somebody on the street, or a homeless person. You always treat people with dignity and respect. And if they choose to be different, then you'll meet them there. But you always engage people that way.
Thank you.
And because you can be loud and bigger than life and boisterous, but you always take time to treat people nicely. You always do. And everybody around here would say that about you, I'm sure. I've talked to a lot of your people. There are critical choices people make, 7 critical choices in their life. Can you think of the most critical choice you've ever made? Was it when you walked out of being a bellman and I'm getting in a fight game? Was it when, getting married? What was it?
It started at 15. I moved out of my house not long after that. I walked out of that job and said, this is not me. I want something else. Made the move back to Vegas, met the Fertittas. Then there's this whole shift. I was a trainer for probably, almost 10 years. Then
you trained Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz, right?
Well, I managed them.
You managed them.
I was their managers, yeah. No, I was a trainer. Like, I'd get you in shape. I had boxers too, but where the money really was with training, guys like you. That's where you make the money. And then once we bought the UFC, there's this whole shift that you have. And I think people have this thing in their head. I was a bellman, I was a trainer, now I'm the president of a company, right? And you have to be able to make that, you have to realize and know in your mind that you can do this. Because I think a lot of people that I've talked to that ask me questions about business can't see themselves in that role, or think they're not ready, or think they're not good enough, or think they're not smart enough to step into a role. Well, a week ago I was a bellman. A week ago I was a trainer. You know what I mean? You have to put all that self-doubt. You got to bury that and go for it, and just believe in yourself and know that you can do it. I think that's hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, that is.
So that was another defining moment.
But that's a critical choice too. You got to choose to own it. Because you said I read where you said I was 33 and all of a sudden I'm managing this multi-million-dollar business.
100%. Because
you'd been in gyms and stuff, but all of a sudden you're in this multi-million-dollar business at 33. You got to believe you can do it.
Right. So I think the biggest year I'd had when I was a trainer was like $450,000. Now I'm dealing with millions of dollars, right? And
it's not a bad year as a trainer.
No, yeah. I was good.
Yeah. Guys like me. What do you mean guys like me?
I successful guys. I used to train. Listen, I still bump into people here in town. I used to take your class. You used to train me. I used to do this. It was awesome. I loved what I did then too. And, but I trained like a lot of successful guys, housewives, and, I loved it.
Yeah. 5 pivotal people. Is there a pivotal person in your life that you look back now and say, but for that person, I might not be who I am today?
Yeah. It would definitely be Peter Welsh, and it would definitely be Lorenzo Fertitta.
Yeah. What do you think they saw in you that they came out of character? I mean, the Fertittas, they invested millions of dollars in you. Because it wasn't the business. They were invested in you.
Yeah.
Because if you don't work, it doesn't work. Yeah. And Welch, like you said, this isn't a guy that says, yeah, I'm going to do an after-school program. That's not who that guy is.
Yeah. Well, when we did the deal, I found out from managing Chuck and Tito that the UFC was in trouble and going out of business. So as soon as I found that out, I called the Fertittas and I said, I think this thing's going out of business. I think we could buy it, and I think we should. Lorenzo started to get into negotiations with Bob Meyerowitz. I didn't know what the deal was going to be. Then they sat me down and said, we want you to be the president of the company, and we want you to run it. And, I didn't see that coming. But I said, let's do it. I'm in.
Yeah. What do you think they saw in you that they take this trainer and turn over millions of dollars looking for an upside that's turned into billions? What did they see in you?
Well, I think they definitely knew that I was a hard worker. I mean, they saw that for years. They knew that I wasn't afraid to work, number one. But number two, Lorenzo always says, I truly believe that you were put on earth to run this business.
You think that's right?
Yeah, I do.
If you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
I'd still be training people. It's what I love to do.
Yeah. You've never been a political guy, but you and I have had conversations. You believe this country is at a crossroads.
I do.
You believe it truly is at a crossroads.
I really do. Listen, every time there's an election, right, you have two people running on either side, and you have to look at you personally. How does each candidate speak to you, and how do you think they do? What do you think? How do you think they're going to help every American? And this election here is the first time that I can remember in my lifetime of ever seeing a candidate where one is so unqualified to be the president of the United States. It's actually scary. And I'm not one of these, oh my God, America's doomed and blah, 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 blah. This one is that bad. And has nothing to do with my relationship with Trump or any of that. She is unbelievably unqualified, in over her head, and even she knows it.
You think so?
100%.
And
she knows she's in. The fact that she didn't sit down with Joe Rogan and they're handpicking the SNL thing is absolutely insane that even happened. The equal time with the network thing, and there's going to be no repercussions for that. She is absolutely, positively not qualified for this job. And if you are an American, no matter what you can hate Donald Trump, you can whatever. If you vote for her, you're literally out of your mind. You're out of your mind. She's completely not qualified to be the president of the United States.
And this isn't just a political thing with you. You know Trump well. You've known him a long time.
Right.
And he was involved in helping UFC get off the ground.
Yeah, so when we first bought the company, you can imagine, I said we weren't even allowed on pay-per-view. What venues do you think wanted us? No venues wanted the UFC. Now we've broken every venue record all over the world. But then they didn't want us. And at that time, Trump reached out. Think about that. Trump brand here, UFC brand here, and said, we'd love to have you at the Taj. We did a good deal. He showed up for the first fight and stayed till the last fight at both of the events that we did at the Taj. And then from there on out, anything good that happened to me in my career, he was always the first guy to reach out and say, congratulations. I knew you guys were going to do it. This is amazing. I know Trump rubs people the wrong way sometimes. Like I know, he is a great guy. He loves this country, and he wants to do what's best for everybody who's an American. And that's a fact. Otherwise, I would never stand up for him, and I would never be as supportive as I am if any of the stuff they said about him was true. Literally none of it is true. It shows you what can happen to somebody if the machine goes after you. The machine that is between the government, the media, if they want to hurt you, they'll hurt you. And this guy is one of the hardest workers that I've ever met. This guy's flying, he's doing 3 today in 3 different states. And the way that he carried himself through that assassination attempt, that's the president of the United States right there. That's who you want running your country. There's more conflicts going on in the world right now since World War II. And all these women that are talking about voting for Kamala Harris, you're 18 to 24-year-old sons are going to be going to war in the next 2 years if she gets elected. She's going to go sit down with Putin. She's going to go sit down with the president of China, Iran, the Middle East. She's going to go. She can't even talk without a teleprompter. She's not qualified to do any of that.
So you think they're not thinking this through as far as how it's going to impact their sons going to war, getting exposed? You don't think that'll happen?
That's just one. That's just one of the things that will be a problem if she wins tomorrow. That'll just be one of the problems. You think the economy is going to get any better under her? She's been there for 4 years. Her administration has been there for 4 years. And I did this thing the other day with Cuban and all these guys that were on the thing. And it was a weird setup. You got the earpiece in, and you got 4 guys trying to talk and everything else. And Mark Cuban and O'Reilly started throwing out numbers and this and that. Listen, take all your smart numbers and all the stuff that you know. Here's what Americans know. Food costs 25% more than it did, you know. Americans can't afford food right now. Can't buy a house, can't get a car. The list goes on and on. The world was a safer and better place the 4 years Trump was president than the last 4 years. Nobody can deny that. And if she wins tomorrow, it's not going to get worse. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse.
So you think the stakes are very high?
It's the highest it's ever been. I'm not one of these guys. I'm not. You know what's going to happen to everybody in this room tomorrow or Wednesday when the election is over? We're going to get up, we're going to get dressed, and we're going to go to work. We're going to do what we normally do every other day, right? So will the world collapse and implode, you know, by Wednesday? No. But over the next 4 years, we will become weaker than we are right now. And I mean, I don't know how long it would take to fix with another 4 years of this administration. It's that bad and that serious.
What do you say to the people that are afraid that he's going to go on a revenge cycle and weaponize the Department of Justice and go after everybody that has said anything or done anything or prosecuted him, persecuted him?
Is he going to do what they did to him?
Yeah.
Basically, is he going to do what they did to him? No. At the end of the day, Trump is a very strong, you know, he's a strong guy. He's what you want in a president. He's not going to go after everybody. Of course he's not. He's not going to go after everybody. At the end of the day, he's a good guy. They keep trying to give him this image that he's a tyrant. He was already the president. How many people did he go after when he was the president of the United States? He didn't, you know, and he won't this time. What he's going to try to do, fix this country, take care of the American people, and hopefully fix all the other stuff that's going on around the world. Israel, the Ukraine-Russia problem, and make the entire world a safer place. Believe me when I tell you, it's not just Americans here that want Trump to win. People all over the world want Trump to win. America needs a strong leader, and the world needs a strong America.
And I've said it to you. I've said it publicly. I don't agree with everything that Trump has ever said or ever done.
Right.
At all. I don't. I take issue with some of the things that he says and does. I don't think any of us know anybody that we agree with everything they say and do. And I don't think that you have to love everything about somebody to support them or love that person. I don't think that's required. And I think what you're saying is, look, you got two choices here. And you got to make a decision who you want representing this country, who you want representing this country globally, and who you want fighting for them, for all of us as Americans if push comes to shove. And it's already push has come to shove with wars that are going on and that sort of thing. It is who do you want stepping up and defending us and getting this stuff shut down? And you think that's Donald Trump?
There's no doubt about it. I don't think it. It's an absolute fact. I mean, and if you look at what he's talking about doing, you know, they keep talking about this whole rich thing. Oh, yeah, all the rich people are with him, and Mark Cuban's with him, Beyonce, you know what I mean? All these people, J-Lo, all these people that are coming out for Kamala, they're not rich? They're not rich? I mean, come on. Donald Trump is talking about not taxing tips. You don't get any more middle class than that. He's talking about not taxing overtime. He's talking about not taxing people who take care of loved ones at home, and they can write off a lot of that. I mean, if you really listen to the stuff that he's talking about, you want to talk about boosting the middle class. I mean, just this city alone, when you talk about not taxing tips, right? This is a tip city right here.
Yeah, the hospitality industry will thrive.
100%. Clearly. And guess what they'll do? They'll spend more money because they're making more money. It's just, honestly, I can't even believe that this is real life, that we're even having this conversation, that the fact that this woman could come even close to winning this election is absolutely insane to me. Insane. It literally makes no sense. Honestly, I can't even believe that this is real life, that we're even having this conversation, that the fact that this woman could come even close to winning this election is absolutely insane to me. Insane. It literally makes no sense.
And how long have you known Trump?
25 years.
How did he get on your radar, or you get on his radar to begin with?
I don't know. You know, he's always been a big fight fan, but him seeing the UFC before it ever became what it is now, I mean, he was just, he got it. He got it. He liked it. He understood it, and he supported it early. And after that happened, when we did the 2 fights at the Taj, he would always, you know, I was never reaching out to Trump trying to, you know, whatever. He would always reach out. And it's like you said, I don't love everything he says all the time. I don't agree with everything he says all the time. But I will tell you this. He's a good man. He's a good person. He cares about this country and everybody in it. And, you know, when you look at his family, how many rich, I mean, you've sat through thousands of these conversations. Rich parents that when they raise kids either end up on drugs or they hate their parents. And look at his family that he's built. Every one of his kids love him. They still want to be around him. They're all, you know, good members of society. I mean, and the Democrats all used to love him.
Yeah.
Until he became a Republican.
Yeah.
Then he's a racist and everybody hates him and everything else. So, they've done just about everything that you could do to somebody. And this guy does not quit. It's unbelievable.
What do you think happens over the next 4 years if Trump does win versus Harris? What do you think happens in this country?
Yeah, well, I think what's going to happen is he's going to do what he said he's going to do. And it's going to be about America first. You know what I mean? The one things that he will focus on outside of this country, when you look at the immigration problem right now, the borders, think about all the people that are here and have been here for years trying to get citizenship legally. They've been working hard. They had to spend a lot of money. They had to go through, jump through all these hoops to become American citizens. Now they're just, I got a report. And when I did these quotes, I took them all from the most liberal articles because I didn't want to. Fox, the Daily Wire, BBC says that over 10 million people have come over the border in the last 4 years, and that doesn't include the undetected people. The number is probably closer to 30 million people, which is almost, the population of California. These people are all getting immediate citizenship. They're getting their homes paid for. So I have a place up in Maine, and a buddy of mine and I own some real estate up there. The government called and asked us to house 150 immigrants. And they're spreading them all throughout the state of Maine and every other state in the country. And they wanted, they said, we'll pay their deposit and 1 month's rent. just enough time for the election, right? And we turned it down and said no. So when you think about all the people that are here doing it the right way, how dirty and unfair that is. Yeah.
Where do you come down on immigration? Just people coming into this country from other countries, just immigration, not illegal.
I love it. I love immigration. That's what this country was built on. We're all descendants of immigrants, and it just has to be done the right way. There's laws that you have to come through the right way. You have to be documented, and then you have to wait to become an American citizen. And there are millions of people in this country that have done the right thing and are waiting, and now all these people are jumping over them. If that goes for another 4 years and another 30 plus million people come across the border, it's madness.
And you have fighters from all over the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do you have trouble getting them in?
Yeah. We have trouble getting them in right now. Yeah, the answer is yes. It's crazy.
And you go all over the world to do fights.
Mm-hmm.
You take the fights to them, right?
Right.
And how's it received around the world?
It is truly a global business. We have fighters from every inch of space on this planet that we have a fighter from.
Yeah, there's not a country that you don't have fighters, because, I mean, this has gone so global. Now, this is kind of changing the subject, but I think this is really important because you're doing some really important work on brain health research, and you've been doing it for several years now, and you're working with the Cleveland Clinic, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And
for brain injuries.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I've really focused on in my career, and you're continuing to support them with this professional fighters brain health study.
Right.
And that's really important. You're putting a lot into that. Why is that important to you?
Yeah. Listen, there's no secret. Getting punched in the head and kicked in the head is not good for you. It's very bad for you. So we actually take an image of their brains in the beginning and keep following it and watching, to make sure that their brains are still healthy, as healthy as you can be doing this. This isn't a scenario like the NFL issue they had. Oh, you're wearing helmets, so you think the helmet's protecting you. We know that getting punched in the head is really bad for you. The fighters who are involved know it's really bad for you. So we're always trying to figure out, health and safety is the number one thing to us. We spend millions and millions of dollars to make sure that we have healthy athletes that are going into the fight. We have the proper medical attention there during the fight and the proper medical attention after. Think about this. Really wrap your head around this. 30 years, the UFC has been here. There's never been a death or serious injury in 30 years of doing this. Elbows, knees, kicks, punches, So we're always looking, how can we make it even safer? And we're working on this huge study with the Cleveland Clinic.
Yeah, the thing that I like about this study, and I've studied, I've looked into this study in depth, and you guys are looking for really subtle changes in the brain.
Yep.
These are not, you're not waiting until something has gone way wrong. You're looking for, I would refer to it as subclinical changes.
Right.
Really subtle changes before something has gotten to a diagnosable level. You're looking for really subtle changes so you can see it before something happens. So it's precautionary, and you look for changes across time in this so you can really get to people before they get into a problem where something happens and there are neurological differences that you can't reverse.
Absolutely. You go into this thing knowing that being hit in the head is really bad for you long term. The Cleveland Clinic thing that we have going on, in the next 10 years, we'll have so much data that we think we'll be able to have a better handle on brain injuries.
Yeah, and that's a lot about what goes on with this, what you've got here with this campus. I mean, you guys are, you've got training facilities that support scientific developments of the athletes and the coaches that have to do with injury prevention, recovery, who gets in that ring, who doesn't get in that ring, making sure they're properly trained. So you don't get people in there that shouldn't be in there to begin with. They know how to defend. They know how to, not take a full blow. You're doing everything possible to make it as safe as it can be.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. From weight cutting, training, and again, not only, educating the fighter himself, but their coaches too. Because this sport has never really evolved until we got into it. When I say this sport, I'm talking about combat sports in general.
Yeah.
We've never had a performance institute where they learn all these things. You've never had, everything was always old school, we have catapulted this thing light years ahead of where it used to be before we got involved.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Nobody can just come in here and just get in the ring and start mixing it up. There's scientific training. You've got to meet a certain standard. You can't become a UFC fighter if you don't have a well-demonstrated level of skill, and you've got to have the right training, the right coach. You got to be in shape. You got to have all of these different things.
Right.
And good on you for doing that, because that's how you go 30 years without having a death.
Thank you.
And I've met a lot of these fighters by being around you. I've met a lot of these fighters, and these guys have a tremendous respect for the training and the human body, and knowing that they're going in there ready. They're not stumbling in the ring.
I agree. And if you're going to do this for a living, doing it with us, you know that you're going to be taken care of, and it's going to be as safe as it can possibly be.
Yeah. What's the biggest thing on the UFC horizon?
Just going into first of all, getting back into places we haven't been pre-COVID. So after COVID, I stayed away from a lot of the places that I guess you would call super woke, and we're gonna start going back to some of those places now, and going into new territories we've never been in. We're gonna go into Africa for the first time, Spain for the first time, and that's it. Just keep
those places will go insane.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun year, going back to the places we haven't been in a while and going into new places.
Yeah, and when you do, it's still pay-per-view. People can watch from there. But what kind of reception do you get in those countries when you take it there, like Botswana or somewhere?
We break records for gates in the arena. It ignites a territory. When we go in there for the first time and you actually come to see the live event. Nobody walks out of one of our live events and goes, "Yeah, I don't ever want to see one of these again." Yeah. It's the exact opposite. It takes it to a whole nother level.
And this has a big enough impact that the government of these countries talk to you guys about coming and being there, and they want UFC to come there because it's a huge impact on the economy.
Right. The economic impact that we have on cities, in the U.S. and out of the U.S. is massive. You're talking, tens to hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah. And particularly with you going into Africa, this can really have an impact on those economies down there. You've had presidents come and see what's going on and say,
"Oh yeah,
bring this to our country."
100%. And I just opened a performance institute in Mexico. Watch what happens there in the next 5 to 7 years with talent. And when I open a performance institute in Africa,
yeah, this can be a lot of people's ticket out of a really bleak existence.
And that's what people don't realize. People that aren't big fans of fighting don't realize how much this impacts people's lives. For instance, Power Slap, right? My other company, Power Slap. These kids, this thing's 18 months old. These kids are already paying their houses off, buying cars, boats, completely changing their lives. And people talk about, but it's so dangerous. It's this, that. Some of these kids are construction workers. Some of these kids, one of the kids said, "I used to work in the swamps in Florida. I hated my life." And does big things for people that are in a bad way.
Well, you're doing a great thing for great people. And, I talked to the head of neurosurgery at Cedars. He works with the NFL a lot. I said, "You got head injuries and stuff involved in this. Is this something that you think people should continue to do? You're the doctor that treats these things. Do you support it?" He said, "Absolutely, I do, because it gives some of these kids an opportunity for a different life that they'd have no chance at otherwise." And he
Absolutely
said,
right.
He said, "You do this right, and it's their ticket they wouldn't have in any other way. And
if you spend the money to make sure that everybody is safe, and you make it as safe as you possibly can, it's a big deal, and it's a life-changing, not just for the fighters, but generation.
Yeah, it makes all the difference in the world. And you're doing it right, and God bless you for doing that. Thanks for sitting down with me.
Thank you, my friend.
All right.
Always a pleasure.
All right, appreciate it.